Okay, so in this video I'm just going to talk very briefly about the meeting that Hara and myself had with Newcastle University journalism student Izzy Hall. Izzy Hall was put into contact with us basically through the committee members of the It Happens Here Society. They mentioned that there was a journalism student who was going to be talking about sexual assault for her project, for her degree, and that she was really interested in the process that we were going to be going through to create this production, and was wondering if we would be able to meet her and talk about the process that we're going through to create our production. This was really exciting, actually. It was exciting to go and talk to somebody about the process that we're going through to make the production. It was exciting to go and talk about the fact that we've met with Tess Hudson from Rape Crisis, and that we are currently, meeting all these people who are very knowledgeable about this subject to get the best sort of content that we can. And for me as a writer, how going to meet all these different people, including the committee members from the It Happens Here Society, how going to meet all of these people and getting their viewpoints on sexual assault at universities, and sort of taking note of all these sort of opinions, so that later on when I'm writing the first draft of the script, I can infuse all of these opinions into my writing of the script. And just sort of the general way that this is kind of the way that we are going with the project. We are going to meet all these people, and then I'm going to write the script, and then we're going to put the production on. So we'll just sort of go with what happened. So Izzy sort of said that she was very excited about the project. She was very interested in why we had decided to make a play about this topic. She said that it was quite sensitive subject matter, and she was wondering why we had chosen to create a production about this. I think once again, this just highlighted sort of my, obviously this is a project that both I and Hara are taking part in, but for me as a writer, I said that it was really the one to raise awareness of an issue which I think isn't spoken about enough in universities. I don't think it's a topic that maybe people are completely comfortable with, and sometimes theatre is a way to talk about uncomfortable topics, and I think this is a topic that's really relevant, especially right now with the sort of climate that we're in politically and socially, where all the time we are being told about these quite, big personalities from the world of show business and television that are suddenly being sort of outed for their inappropriate behaviour. And although this sort of action that's being taken against these people is definitely raising awareness of sexual assault, it's not necessarily doing it in a university setting, which I think is a setting where sexual assault, well, it does happen, and it should be something that if it happens to you at university, you can have the relevant support there available for you, and you should know where to go for that support. And I think that if I were a victim of sexual assault at university, I wouldn't know necessarily the first place to go. I wouldn't know where to go and ask for support. And I think this is something that really needs to be rectified, and there needs to be sort of a set place just in general in universities. I mean, not just talking about Northumbria or anything, but just in general, there needs to be some set place where we are told, I think on the first sort of week of starting university, that if anything does happen to you that you are not comfortable with or that you are not happy about, here is where you go and this is what you do. And I was really saying to Izzy that was the really big sort of thing for me as a writer. That was why I wanted to speak about this subject. I also spoke about the fact that we'd been really inspired by Open Clasp. We'd really been inspired by their work, Rattlesnake, that talked about the issue of domestic violence. And I had said that this production, it was not just a dark production. There was a moment of lightness and there was moments of darkness, and sort of the idea that we can create a production that, talks about such an important issue, but then equally has moments of humour, was another really big thing for me. I said to her, I want to create a production that not only raises awareness of an issue, but also does it in a way that is relatable to any audience member. And I said that this was a really big sort of thing for me as a writer, and that ultimately just my main goal of this whole production is to write, a stage play for Hara and myself where we play multiple characters, that tells the story of two young women experiencing sexual assault during their university studies, and sort of that their stories sort of develop throughout the production as we play differing characters. And I said that I want to create a production that is truthful and honest about this issue. I want it to be as informed as possible. That's why we're going to use statistics that I found through my own research, as well as using the input from Tess Hudson from Rape Crisis and the It Happens Here committee members. She was actually quite happy with this. She said, I wasn't, when I first heard about the production, I wasn't completely sure as to how you were going to handle this, how you were going about researching it, but she said that's actually a really great way to do it. And she said, I would really like to talk about this process that you're going through in my journalism work. And we said, yep, absolutely. And she has mentioned that she would like to come to a rehearsal at one point. That would be great, I think, to have sort of an outside eye at the rehearsals. I think that'll be a really exciting thing for both her and myself and her to experience. She then went on to ask, I think this was the biggest question that she asked, and the one that really sort of is cemented in my mind from the meeting, is how are you going to write the production so that how are you going to handle portraying sexual assault on stage without it coming across as sort of offensive, or how are you going to make it sort of come across as, I'm not really sure how she phrased it. She said something like, how are you going to make it so that a possible victim of sexual assault can watch your production without it being too upsetting? This is something that I have thought about as a writer. It's something that certainly is a big thought in my mind right now, especially now that it's been highlighted again by Izzy. I think this is an issue that we will come back to, because obviously I'm going to be writing sort of multiple drafts of this script, and although I want the script to be honest and I want it to be truthful about the issue, equally I don't want it so that audience members who may have been victims of sexual assault in the past or in the recent time of their lives, I don't want an audience member to be taken back in any way to that attack. I don't want anyone to feel as if, that this production that I've written has brought back any sort of bad memories or anything like that. That is not the aim of what I want to do. And I think this really highlighted again for me when Izzy asked this question. And I think it works. I think it worked so much because Izzy is not a drama student. So this is obviously coming from someone from an outside point of view. How are you going to handle this? And I think, what I said to Izzy is that my aim as a writer is to make sure that the piece not only raises awareness, but also that it is sensitive to the subject matter. In no way do I want to offend anyone. I don't want to create anything sort of inappropriate. I don't want to be honest with you, the way that it's going right now with the writing, I think we're not even going to, one of the main things from the beginning that I've always said in terms of writing the script is that sexual assault will not be shown on stage. There will be no kind of assault shown on stage because I just don't think it's needed. I don't think it's required. I think there's a lot of things that me and Hara can do as actors that basically, reference a sexual assault, but we do not have to show it directly. And I think Izzy was quite concerned that that's what we were going to do, that we were going to sort of show these sexual assaults happening. And I immediately said, no, I don't think that's required. To be honest, I don't think it's really appropriate to do. And I think, once again, I think that was the really big thing I've taken away from this meeting with Izzy, is that really, as a writer, I have a really big responsibility during this process. I have a really big responsibility to make sure that the script that I'm writing is honest and authentic to what is really happening in the real world, but that ultimately it's not, that the piece is not meant to be upsetting or unsettling in too much of a way. Obviously, the subject matter is not particularly pleasant, but equally I think there is a way to present this kind of subject matter without it becoming too gory isn't the right word, but too much. I think I really want to be able to make it more subtle. I want to make the production so that anyone could watch it really and still be, moved or affected by it, but equally no one comes out of the theatre and thinks, oh my goodness, I can't cope with what I've just seen. Because I've experienced this when watching theatre productions, and it's not a very nice feeling. It's not nice feeling that you can't cope with something that you've seen on stage, and this is the last thing that I want to create with this production. So I think the big thing that came with the meeting from Izzy today was thinking about this issue and really thinking about how I'm going to portray sexual assault on stage, and how myself and Hara are going to perform this content without it becoming too upsetting for an audience. And ultimately, it's just brought back to me again how kind of big my responsibility is as a writer to make sure that I get this piece right. And that is my ultimate goal here, is to make sure that it's the best possible work that I can make it, and that it is sensitive and respectful, basically, to members of the audience who may have experienced sexual assault. I want it to be respectful towards people who might be dealing with this issue right now or might have dealt with it before. And I think really I just want to empower victims of sexual assault. I don't want to, try and, kind of replicate an attack or anything like that. And I think that was a big thing actually for Izzy to ask, because like I said, Izzy is not a drama student. So to have that from somebody who isn't a drama student to say to me, how are you going to handle this issue? It was something that I had thought about, but hadn't really thought of an answer for yet. And I think it forced me to really sit and think, actually, how am I going to deal with this issue? And I think it's just brought back to me again, this really big sense of responsibility that I have to make sure that this piece is as respectful and sensitive about the content, about the subject matter as possible. And I think that's why the meeting with Izzy today was really useful, because obviously I am approaching the time now where I will be writing the first draft of the script, and I want to make sure that it's the best draft possible. But equally, I also have to make sure that I have to make sure that the production is not going to be too upsetting for anybody to view. And I think that's become quite a big thing in my mind right now. So yeah, I think just the meeting with Izzy, I think it was interesting to have a viewpoint from someone who isn't involved in drama at all. She's involved in journalism, which is a completely separate thing. And I think it was interesting to have to answer this question of how are you going to handle putting sexual assault or talking about sexual assault on stage, because it's not something that I had really thought of an answer for. And I think now I'm sort of starting to develop ideas as to how I can, in the writing of the script, sort of make it obvious to an audience member that this is what has gone on without showing it physically, because I don't want to show it physically. I don't think that's a very appropriate thing to do. And I think just having this sort of seed of thought in my head will sort of be there, I think, all the time now when I'm writing, thinking, is there a way that you can make this piece of the production, is there any way you can make sure that it's not too upsetting for anyone, make sure that it's not offensive in any way? I mean, obviously a writer never wants to be offensive to victims of any sort of crime, or any audience member for that matter, but equally we're talking about quite difficult issues here. And I think it's just put a seed in my mind to think, well, this is the responsibility that you have to think about this. So take it seriously. And yeah, I think just having that seed of thought in my head, I think will be quite useful as I go on to writing the first draft. So it was really great to meet Izzy. It was a really interesting meeting that we had with her, and she's hopefully going to come to a rehearsal once we get into the rehearsal process, and she's hopefully going to be able to come to the end performance as well, which is always great. And we're hopefully going to have more contact with her soon. So yeah, it was just to sort of do a brief post about sort of my feelings about the meeting with Izzy, and yeah, I'll be back with the next post. So thank you very much for watching.